Hey everyone, I am so honored to be speaking with TJ Prieur, who is a firefighter from Central Maryland. This man is an absolute gem and he should be protected at all costs. Not that he needs any protecting. He's incredibly wise, like just an absolute sage. And he drops an incredible amount of knowledge on fatherhood, relationships with your spouse, the relationship with yourself, doing hard things to grow resiliency, and so much more. This podcast is going to be broken down into two parts. The first being the necessary growth and discipline for yourself with just a ton of valuable lessons. And the second being an intimate look at the Mayday that he was involved in as a RIT team member for the 2021 line of duty death of Battalion Chief Joshua Laird. While at times it can be a hard listen, his insights are absolutely invaluable to the fire service, and we're able to learn what only a handful have experienced. So thank you all for the support. Please like, share, and subscribe, and check out the online community through Patreon, where a 30-year membership is going to be donated to public safety causes, charities, and nonprofits. And in return, you're going to get tons of information in the form of like workouts, mobility, research, growth mindset podcast episodes, early access to podcasts, and extremist readiness, reading lists, and there's just so much more. So appreciate the support. Check it out.
Got hay fire, one trap on the second floor, banging on the window.
The Forged and Unbroken podcast.
So when we first met, loosely, was at the Key City Fire Conference.
Yep.
Right, and I got to sit in on a little bit of your talk with your experiences. And you had a just starting out really cool story coming from Maryland to Colorado and then back again. And then hearing Jeremy's podcast with you on National Fire Radio, it was number 327. I encourage anybody to listen to it because that really, you kind of outlined everything again. And it was just a really great look into that part of your life and maybe how that developed some things.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
You were Maryland first, though? Is that where you were from? Are you from Maryland originally?
No, so I kind of did the travel game. We grew up in California, and then I moved to Midwest. And went to high school, and middle school, high school, and college in the Midwest. And then my dream was always to go out west.
Yeah.
I had a pretty nasty breakup and just rolled out, ended up out in Colorado. And that's where I met my wife.
Yes.
So we were living the ski bum lifestyle out there and started having, we had our first child, which was changed my life forever. Yeah. And I kind of started to see what the world was all about, if you will. Kind of slowed everything down pretty tremendously. But we were playing the switch-off game where I was working all day in the ER and ski patrol at that point, and then she was working at night. And it was not what I wanted, if you will. I wanted to raise my family together. And so we decided to make the move. So we put in for Grand Junction, Colorado for the fire department, and we put in for Frederick, Maryland, where she was from. She has lots and lots of family there here.
Got it, yeah.
And we said wherever God takes us is the way we'll roll. So I put in for the jobs, and then it got down to the point where they never gave us the offer until last minute. So at that point, we literally had packed up the U-Haul, and the day before we rolled out, I got the acceptance offer.
That's incredible. Like
sweet.
You can kind of see it coming.
Yeah, and it was one of those points where we had come so far, it's like we need to change no matter what. So let's just like dive both feet in and have faith in it and let's just do it. You
That's
know,
awesome.
this is what the family needs right now. It was the last thing I wanted to do. Like,
Yeah.
yes, firefighting is my dream job, and I always want to be a full-time firefighter, and I was doing part-time firefighting out there. And then I was working as a bike patroller, ski patroller, and literally getting paid to ride my mountain bike and work on trails. And then working in the ER and was doing a lot of EMS work and was loving it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to raise my family in a home with my wife, you know, and have surrounded by family that's raising my kids with me, not babysitters and other people that can inspire my kids in a way that, you know, it's not in the same realm as where we're trying to live in, you know.
Yeah. No, I love that. I know we're going to dig in on that pretty deep here in a little bit. I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but it's something that's always interested me. What are some of the, I don't want to go as far as saying cons, but like what are some of the pros, or how has the West Coast, you know, big sky country, Colorado, that culture and lifestyle how has that maybe changed you personally? And what I mean is, you got a lot of people like here, East Coast, our outdoor vibes are a little bit different than what you probably get out there, right?
Yeah, very much.
So, and then we can still, we can go from oceans to our mountains, our big hills out here, within a couple minute drive. So how has the culture and lifestyle that you had out west changed your outlook for where you're at now here on the East Coast?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me moving out here, which was interesting, is when you live in Colorado, everyone's so passionate about being outdoors.
Yeah.
So passionate about what they do, and they want everybody to know how awesome it is. So you can go out and ski all day and then go get a beer afterwards, and you can meet some random person who's a pro kayaker who wants to tell you everything about kayaking, who then asked you to come kayaking tomorrow with them, and they have a kayak and a paddle and a PFD.
Yeah, nice.
Because they want to show you how rad it is. Anything that you can imagine out there, you can literally find somebody and talk to somebody who wants to teach you about their passion.
That's amazing.
Which was so incredible. And I remember being in the training academy, and after it kind of settled down a little bit because it was so intense, when I got in, I think the management at the time when I was in the academy was very much military based, and it was very strict, and it wasn't what I was expecting. So it was a big culture shock to me to come in and be screamed at and to be talked to in that way, in a military sense, and I've never experienced that in my life. So it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life by miles.
Wow.
As far as like being rigor and putting your best foot forward, because there was no option to fail. There was no option to fail. I moved my entire family out here for this job. It had to succeed, but I was a kid that didn't do well at all in school, barely graduated and everything, because I was there to have an experience, So coming out as a valedictorian in that class blew my mind that I was capable of doing that, right? Cool. And I think it was at that time that I was excited to be here and to do something new, but it was hard. I was living in the basement, basically, of my in-laws' house with a pregnant wife and a 2-year-old, and going through this crazy, rigorous academy for 6 months, where I was just like nose in the books. I read every single page of every single book. I didn't read a single book until I graduated college. Literally, that wasn't me. So when I asked some people in my academy class, like, hey man, like, what do you guys do for hobbies? And everyone just stared at me. And I'm like, what's up, man? They're like, I don't know, dude. Like, I guess I go to the gym a little bit. I'm like, okay, but like, what's your hobby, dude? Like, what's your passion? And they just like would stare at me. They're like, I don't know, man. I play some video games with my friends. And I'm like, oh no.
Wow.
Like, this is going to be a different world to live in.
Yeah.
And it's taken... I've been here now about 7 years, and we finally now have a community of people around us who are just passionate individuals about parenting, about church, about, biking, hiking, so we finally found our people.
Yeah, nice.
But it took a lot of effort to get there, and a lot of discipline to keep putting yourself in the situations to find the people that are going to cultivate the lifestyle that you're looking for. So it was a little bit different to find the people here in Maryland or on the East Coast, because they weren't just at this prevalent mountainous world to where everybody was living their ultimate passion, and it was like people were trying to find themselves here a lot more, I think. Well, I think people were trying to find themselves more out there through their passion, and then here was just such a different multiverse, basically, of people just trying to live and survive, so it was a different world to be living in, to come from such love and compassion and so much nature and running water and camping and all these things that just made you feel grounded and rooted, to like, wow, I have a lot more work to do here to stay in that grounded, rooted state.
Sure, that's a great way to put it. And I feel like in this stage of our life, maybe a little bit older, married, kids, to find that tribe is a heavier lift than when you're in your 20s. So to speak, right? You do have a little bit of a ready-made family with the fire service, your academy made, so to speak, but it's still very different at this stage in your life. Is there anything the East Coast has given you that maybe the West Coast may not have? Maybe it's a whole. Is it something different? Or have you been able to curate what you need here?
I think that we've been able to curate what we need here because we found all of Colorado here. It just takes a lot more searching, and it takes a whole lot more soul searching, because you might not just have the goofball at the bar that's going to show you the way. You have to kind of search for the way. So it was almost a lot more effort, which taught you a lot more about yourself, truly trying to find your way, you know. And once you become a father and a husband, your priorities shift. You know, I always hung around the wild dudes that did wild things, and we were hitting big jumps on dirt bikes and hitting big jumps on snowboards and hitting high mountains on all our snowmobiles, and I like lived for the thrill. I have an incredible group of friends that I'm still very much in contact with across the whole country, you know, but now I choose the people I hang out with how they treat my kids. And that's a pretty different world to be living in, because it's different than what you imagine, or different than your old lifestyle, right? It's like I'm going to pick the people that I hang around based on how they treat my family and my kids, because I want my kids to see a reflection of who they're ultimately going to become, because our community around us is ultimately who we become indefinitely, right? Unless we can somehow find our way out. So to try to cultivate an environment for my kids to thrive in, like, I want to be surrounded by fathers that are present, you know, and fathers that are allowing their kids to do hard things and fail, but they're building the space for their kids to have that environment to do those things, you know. And that's one of the hardest things, I think, as a father, is finding that community of like-minded individuals. You know, we have the brotherhood as a fire department, but the like-mindedness sometimes isn't there. You know, especially now in my journey after going through the line of duty death and the things that I went through in my journey of a spiritual awakening, basically, to find out who I was. Like, even in that time after the Laird event, my community has changed dramatically. And, you know, and you have to be okay with letting go of people out of love. And they might not be giving you love as you let go of them. And you have to be able to, like, really take a deep breath and be like, well, that's okay. Like, I love you still. But this isn't about you. Like, this is about my family. You know, and choose. I mean, it's always about choosing the harder path, because the harder path, the most resistance, is going to give you the most reward in the backside, right? You're going to learn the most from that, and you learn that through over the years and have a little more wisdom. It's like the easy way always looks cool and looks like, oh, that's enjoyable, but you learn over time, like, if it looks that easy, it's not for you. Like, you need to look for the hard things and choose the hard road, because that's where all the growth comes from. You know,
and the easy road actually leads to a lot of difficulty and hardness in a different way on the back end of it.
Because it looks good.
It looks good.
And the people you meet looks good, right? But it's like they're on the easy road, and it ain't nothing easy about it. It's not fulfilling.
No, not at all. You got to choose your hard. Both end up being very hard.
Absolutely.
It's about that daily discipline.
Daily discipline, which is a lot, you know? And it's like, well, how do you cultivate a daily discipline? And that comes through a lot of work and a lot of being very intentional with your mindset, you know? And it comes from being really, really strong on your why. Why do you do what you do every single day? What is your purpose on this planet? You know, and then what's your willpower look like? And it's like, oof, willpower. All right, well, how do I cultivate that? Well, you cultivate that by doing hard things every single day willingly. Like, you're choosing the hard path. You choose to get in the ice bath every single day. Not because you want to. That's the last thing you want to do in the morning. But you know that when you come out of there, you're going to have to already talk to the voice in your head that's saying, you're no good, you're not worthy, you can't do this. And you're like, all right, bro, I listen to you, I hear you, but I'm going to choose the other side.
I'm not giving you space.
That's it. So it's like you have to be willing to choose the hard things every day to cultivate the willpower. And then you add your why to that, family, friends, community, joy, whatever that is. I mean, and that's your discipline. You know, and that's how you can cultivate that every single day.
Let's start with that thread of choose your why. One of my close friends I had on here, Nate Martin, talked about how you need to be comfortable in your space, in your head, and you have to have identified something that can't be taken from you, because so many things can be taken from you. The fire service is one of them, whether it's taken from you by force or, hey, it's time for retirement. And some people don't do well with that. Or he even went as far as saying fatherhood. If your entire identity is wrapped up in just being a father, that can be taken from you, as hard as that is to hear. So what is something that can't be taken from you that is your purpose and your mission in life that can still reverberate out to all those other things like fatherhood and husbandhood and just being a man? What would you say, putting you on the spot here, what would you say that why is? What is that kernel for you that keeps you going? Or even when you maybe are not on the path, so to speak, that's a thing like, oh no, this is my why, I got to get back.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Absolutely. I think the why for me is like, what do I want to leave behind in this journey? What do I want to be remembered for in this journey? And how do I treat people every single day? The most important person that you meet, is whoever you're with in that moment. Like, that's the most important human on the planet, and you have a connection. I believe that we're on this earth for connection, and we're in, I call it Earth School, because we're just learning about ourselves, learning about life, and we learn through opposition. We learn through adversity. We learn through all these things, and the more that you can understand that, it's an opportunity to grow. It's like we can hold on to these bad things that happen to us, and it can lead to PTSD, or we can have post-traumatic growth when we're able to reflect upon it and change and reflect and reflect and reflect and reflect and understand and meet ourselves where we're at that moment, because we understand as humans, we try to do our best with what we have and the opportunity that we have at that moment, right? So it's like we only know what we know until we know otherwise, but we're never going to change our perspective until we're able to reflect and meet ourselves where we're at. So my why every day is I want to be known as a great father when I leave this place. Like, when I die someday, I want everybody to be like, that dude was a rad dude, and he was a rad father, because I try to cultivate an environment for my kids to absolutely thrive and enjoy this world, and the more that we can come down on a level of a child's level, that's the ultimate world. They're still living in heaven, and we're over here stressing about this and upset about this and looking at the negative about this, and we call them ants in our brain, the automatic negative thoughts. Like, we have so many ants that are cruising around in our minds. And you got these kids that are trying to show you a totally different world, but we can't even see it because we can't connect with them and meet them where they're at. Yeah. And I think the why for me is like, I want people to remember me as a good father, but I want people to be inspired by me and to just truly like emanate what I'm trying to put out there. You can't preach something that you're not living. Yeah. You have to live by those ways, and it's so hard at times, because a lot of people will say it's not about what you say, it's how you say it, and it's, to me, it's not about what you say, it's what you do. Yes. And it's not about what you've done, but what are you doing right now? And there's so many fathers that I've met that are like, hear that I'm running ultra marathons now, and they're like, oh yeah, back in the day I used to run 8 miles, and you're like, cool, can you walk 8 steps right now? Yeah. Like, I don't care about your 8 miles you used to run, dude. What are you doing right now that your kids are watching you go through adversity and difficult times to then learn that it's possible? Yes. And it was the coolest thing. I ran an Ironman in 2022 because I wanted to see the possibilities of this world. And I remember doing a sprint triathlon and being like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, how are these dudes even, that's not even a thought in my mind that that's possible. Like, what do they know that I don't know? Yeah. And while I go through this process, my kids are going to watch me go through this process and understand that there's no limits in this world. And the more things that we can do to cultivate that environment for our kids to see and to keep pushing through adversity and keep pushing through daily discipline when we don't want to, and we're waking up early and they're watching us meditate every morning, and they're watching us read books every morning, they're watching me leave early in the morning for a 10-mile run for training. It's like, they know that's the new possibility, and it was so cool. It was 2 weeks ago, we went on a 19-day road trip with our family, and it was so much fun. Yeah. And we jumped in the minivan, and my little sister was getting married in Denver area. Okay. And we spent 4 days there, and I went golfing, which is not my jam. But I realized it was kind of like my yoga, which it was cool. It was peaceful. I took my shoes off and was just like in really pristine grass. Yeah, right. I got screamed at immediately for not wearing shoes. So I teed off on hole 1 and then took all my shoes off. And then by the end of it, the whole group had no shoes on. We were all grounding out. I love it. But I talked to one of my sister's best friends, and he was saying how his 18-year-old brother was running an ultra. And I'm like, what makes your 18-year-old brother want to run an ultra? He's like, well, my dad was an Ironman. And I'm like, oh, whoa, like, it clicked. That's it. Yeah. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, that kid is now doing really hard things, but that's his baseline. Yes. Like, that's what's up. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to cultivate for my kids. anything that you dream up that you want to do, I'm going to teach you the ways of how to show up every single day for yourself and build that confidence and resiliencies every single day, because you will get to where you want to get to. But it's going to be patient. You have to be very patient and have a lot of time to reflect upon what you've done right and what you've done wrong, and be okay with failure. You know, I'm okay with failing as much as possible. I try to ask my kids every day at the dinner table, what did you fail at today? What could you have done better? Because a failure is your first attempt in learning, and you have to keep constantly failing in order to grow, and it's okay. And I feel like we're in a society right now to where we keep saying that failure is not okay. And it's like, just be comfortable. Just stay inside. Be comfortable. Don't do that. That's scary.
It's
you
cancer.
Can get hurt.
Yeah.
It's like, well, great, good. Is it going to kill you? No, well, then do it.
And that's a slow, literal and metaphorical death.
Yes.
That comfort.
That's it.
The comfort. One of my favorite books is The Comfort Crisis, and that's exactly what they talk about. There's so much to unpack here. I love this. Let's dig in a little deeper on fatherhood. And I'll set you up with this. I want to talk pre and post incident, which I know we'll get to. Because you had the fatherhood of managing the stress of the academy life and the moves and young new family. And then I know for me, at least personally, there was a massive shift post line of duty, post Mayday, when values realign, we'll say. But it's also a daily discipline. It can be a daily struggle. Just this past Father's Day, I remember a couple of days leading up to it, I just remember that kind of being like a bit of a hallmark date. And I had like some stomach pain, and I thought maybe, I ate something bad, whatever. And I realized as I started talking to my wife, it was actually anxiety sitting in my body.
It's just emotion.
It was just emotion, because there are still points where the fire service can give you so many opportunities to be with your kids for long periods of time. And then again, it can also tire you out. It can get you frustrated. It can mess with your health, and it can take you away for long periods.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I was feeling that, and I remember thinking, like, I just want to be a good dad, and I don't want to mess my kids up. And I hope that I'm here for them in a way that provides value and insight, like the things that we're talking about. And after just talking through that with my wife, like that stomach pain disappeared. So I had to get that, like you said, that emotion was sitting in my body, and I just started laughing to myself, because like that's where it was. I should have done that work.
Well, I mean, emotion is energy in motion, but our bodies, as we don't want to talk about it and we suppress it, because that's what we're told we're supposed to do. We're men. You don't cry. You don't talk about your emotions. You don't talk about hard calls. You just put it in your body until it comes out someday as cancer or whatever else it's going to be, right? It's just going to be sickness of your body.
My favorite
and it's
analogy.
going to steal your energy.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, my favorite analogy is that people bury it down, but they didn't realize that it was a seed, and that seed grows and it manifests itself into such bigger, larger things. So pre and post for you, what did fatherhood look like? And the words I commonly hear are shame. Like you said, you can't talk about certain things. If you are vulnerable, we hear that, hey, we want our men to be vulnerable, and then when we do, sometimes it's like, oh, hold on, that was too much vulnerability. You need to button that up. You need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So then you just shove it down more. Like I said, the shame, like academy lifestyle to now post-incident where maybe things realign and readjusted. What did that look like for you, and how do you cultivate that? I know you've hit on a lot of it already.
I think the biggest thing for me was I had gone through some pretty big calls with kids, and losing some kids on calls that really, I didn't say messed me up, but it changed my perspective at a pretty high level. And that was one of my big awakenings, is I had a pretty hard call with a pregnant mom who started to deliver at 26 weeks, and it was just this little hand. And that was kind of the start of all of it, to where I really started to reflect on who I was as a person and what I was cultivating in my kids' lives. I didn't realize the amount of anxiety that I was going through and stress. I mean, I knew I was on all the medications that they told me to take to make me happy, and all the antidepressants, anti-anxieties, ADHD meds, all these things that I was taking that made me felt literally not even in my body at all. I just felt kind of just blah, And I started to cultivate and really started to be aware that life's only here for so long, and especially our kids, and seeing kids die at a young age, it didn't make sense. It really made me look at that for what it was, and really allowed me to never leave my house without kissing my kids and understanding like this could be the last time I ever see them, and that's a hard pill to swallow as a father, but that's the reality of the world we live in. Like I want to always make sure that before I leave my home ever, I kiss and love on my entire family. I want to know what they're wearing. I want to know what their eyeballs look like. I want to know everything about their state of being before they left. And I felt like I was doing that pretty well, and I was on a pretty cool journey. And I was really disciplined in my habits and really disciplined in my goal setting and really disciplined in all of these hard things that I was doing. And I was on this triathlon journey and I was doing lots of yoga. I started diving into meditation and started to find my bliss. And then the Laird event happened. And I think the biggest shift that happened for me was understanding that all these tools that I was using, it was going to take some time and patience to work through, and giving myself grace and meeting myself where I was at. But I think the biggest shift that I had as a father was understanding that I might not be here that long. I could lose my life tomorrow. And I never thought about that. As a father, you don't really think about those things. At least I didn't, because I never lived in fear of death. I didn't like death or looking at it a whole lot back in the day. Now I can kind of understand a little more deeply. But that kind of changed my aspect of, I want my entire family to be self-sufficient, period. Yes. Period. If I go tomorrow, I want my family to know how to do everything that I do. I want them to know exactly how to survive and to thrive on a daily occurrence without me. And so I started to change my disciplines and what I slowed down, and I started allowing my children into, to the point now where literally when I'm on shift, I know everything is dialed. My 8-year-old's, he's the one that locks all the windows and doors at night and checks in on mom. He's the one that starts my fires in the middle of the winter. My 6-year-old's out doing things that most 15-year-olds aren't doing. We're doing things with our hands and creating things in space for our life to be fulfilled as a group, as a community. So I think the biggest thing for me after that fire was like understanding that I might not be here forever, and I need to take the time now for my kids and now for my family, because I might not get that time, not because they might be gone, because I might be gone, and I never thought, firefighter's dangerous and we hear about the line of duty deaths, but until you're part of one and you were almost one yourself, you don't really have that perspective fully. So that shifted a lot with me, with like how much more time I cultivated into my children's lives and my wife's life, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. There's there's an aspect of like memento mori there, right? Like to realize and understand that death is a very real possibility. So many people that can be a barrier or a burden or a stressor. But if you flip the conversation and be like, well, now this just helps me realize that I'm living on borrowed time. This is everybody's first go at this. This is our only go at this. How do we put really awesome time into these little bits of time that we get with our kids, with the people that we connect with? And it gives you a deeper appreciation. Like Absolutely. You don't necessarily need to fear the death. You might fear the absence and the loneliness for them, but to cultivate those experiences and those memories and the skills, right? The skills are just huge, because you want them to be resilient. And this whole thing is a marathon. It's not a sprint. That's it. Right? I think we try to sometimes slam too many things in. I'm going off into.
Well, I feel like there's so many men out there that just want to be wanted, because we're just little kids in adult bodies, and we're trying to find the love that we never got, because our family was working, or our dads were away, or like my dad left when I was 2, so I think we're always trying to reach for that more love and want to be wanted. So sometimes it's hard as a father to pass off some of these things that you do for your family because it makes you feel loved. And it's like it takes a strong individual and a lot of courage to pass something off to somebody else, a younger person especially that you trust, that can do the work for you, because then you can do something else and you can gather more energy to do more and more and more. And I think that's the biggest thing, is being okay and like loving yourself enough and meeting yourself and like where you're at, because we shouldn't need any external anything. Like we have everything we need within us, right? And it's like our children show us that on a daily basis. But it's a matter of like giving yourself the love that you're looking for, so you can be okay with letting some things go, and watching your family grow and watching your especially like my little boys grow into like individuals that are sustainable, that are teaching little kids how to live life. Like I listened to my 6-year-old the other day. There was a 5-year-old having a complete meltdown, and he looked at him and he says, hold on, man. He's like, you need a rule 1, bro. He goes, help yourself. You got to help yourself. He's like, get up, go find your dad, help yourself. And I'm like, oh, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
That's a 6-year-old teaching another child how to survive and how to live for yourself, because we're capable. We can do this. We can do hard things.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. Like those are the moments that I'm like, oh, all this work is so worth it.
Man, doesn't that just hit you
It's
so hard?
incredible.
You're like, yes, they're paying attention, and it's you see the value in real time, right?
Well, and they know it works because it's worked for them.
Yeah. Right.
It's like if we just sit here and scream and scream and scream, maybe somebody will show up. Maybe not the right person. It's like, get up and work for yourself. Do what you can do that's in your control. There's so many people that don't want to control the controllables. Mm-hmm. They just want to yell out loud about what's wrong with everything. And you're in charge of my triggers, basically. It's like, that's not true at all, dude. Like, I was in charge of my triggers, and I still am, and that's where I grow. If I'm triggered by something lives within me that I need to get out, that I need to look at and reflect upon and learn about myself even deeper, at a deeper level, because you shouldn't be able to trigger me. I'm in charge of that. You're not.
Yes.
So I think it's important to be in a state of being and grounded enough and loved enough to be okay to dive into those triggers. But that takes a nervous system that's in alignment, and that takes a lot of discipline and work on a daily basis to be able to do that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. It took a lot of work for me to figure that out, because I certainly had my triggers, things I picked up from childhood, things that were amplified during hard times, whether it be COVID, marriage, my line of duty. And I thought that was how you get people to pay attention to you. Oh, I got triggered. Now I'm going to light off.
Yeah.
And now understanding, like you said it perfectly, like we are in control of this. This is in our body. And to more readily identify that, and then to bring those skills forward to shut those triggers down. Sometimes you got to be gentle with yourself. Sometimes it can be really hard. And I think going back to what you said is people shy away from doing the hard thing. It's just easier to get triggered and then move on, with scorched earth behind you.
That's it.
Sometimes it's hard.
It's so hard
to do some of those skills and to down regulate and to really shut down those triggers. And sometimes they don't ever leave. They can be part of you. They don't have to be, but you are in charge of keeping them at bay.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't control the world around you, but you can control how you react to it.
Yes.
Which will absolutely control the world around you, because perspective of reality creates reality. And I think that's so important to understand. The more work that we're willing to dive into with our triggers, and the more that we can let go of, the more enjoyable world that we can live in. Because I like to call it, excuse my French, but unfuckwithable. Like, you can't mess with me, because I'm in charge of my own energy. I'm in charge of my own emotions. You can say something, and if it triggers me, there might be a little truth to it. Maybe I need to do a little reflection upon myself and be like, all right, like, you're right, dude. I can change some things up. But you might say something, and I can just giggle and be like, that's just your opinion, dude. And your opinion of me is none of my business, dude. It's not my business to understand that. Like, that's just you, and having a good discipline and being connected enough, but also disconnected enough that other people are going to say really mean things, and other people are going to do really things that you can't even believe, especially as a firefighter. And you see some of these things, especially with kids and fathers of bad fathers. You're like, how could you ever? And you're just so upset and angry. And it's like, you have to meet them where they're at, and you have to give that person love. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do in this reality, is seeing somebody that's harming somebody else, especially a child, and trying to give them love and understanding that he only knows what he knows based on his own past experience and what he's been through. And to be able to be like, man, what's that guy been through that he thinks that's acceptable? Like, I'm so sorry that he had to go through that. And that's tough sometimes, especially when you see it, but especially when it comes upon you and people say and do things against you, and you're like, man, if you only knew the truth. But that's all right, dude. Like, that's just your life, dude, and that's your opinion, and you can have your opinion. I might not agree with it, but that's all right. I'll still love you for it.
That takes a tremendous amount of growth and awareness. Right?
Awareness. Constant awareness. You have to use a lot of tools to keep you in awareness and keep you grounded in like the actual moment.
Yes.
That's why breath is so important. It's the only thing that stays present all the time.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. And before I get into that, there's some reading and study I've done where they talk about moral injury and how that is, yes, there's the acute trauma that we experience, but sometimes the moral injury, especially with children, is a massive contributor to PTSD and fire and EMS. And so I just find it interesting that we place ourselves in these positions. We see and are witness to a lot of these things. But as you said, like, we need to have the skills, and a lot of people aren't taught those skills unless they hit maybe rock bottom or they have somebody who's incredibly empathetic with them and helps them through that process. But that process, the Japanese call it like a misogi.
Oh yeah. One hard thing a year.
The spiritual cleansing, right?
Yeah.
The two rules are it's got to be hard and you can't die.
Yeah.
And I love that for me. Or I love that thought process, and for me, it has been a tremendous amount of growth and healing by doing those hard things. And I know I live off of a high for maybe a year until the next one comes around, right? And I don't always go into these situations thinking that I'm going to, this is going to be my misogi. But I put myself in a hard position, sometimes by myself, a lot of times with like-minded, colleagues and friends. And it just changes your whole perspective of what you're capable of.
Yeah, because you don't know until you're in that situation. You don't know what you're capable of until you're ready to quit. And everything in your entire body's saying no more. And you got to overcome that because somebody's watching, and you can give more for your kids. You know you can give more for your family. You can give more for your brother that doesn't no longer live in here anymore. You can give more for all these people that can't even do what you're doing. If your body can move, you're going to keep moving. And when you get through that, it'll change your life forever because now your threshold has a whole different level. That's now your baseline.
Yes.
And that's what's so tough when you do something like an Ironman. It's like, well, you can't just go run a half marathon now. It's like, okay, like I ran a half marathon, like my wife and I are doing one for the next 10 years together. And you want to talk about learning about your companion in a relationship, especially someone coming from a PT instructor at the training academy and having a totally different mindset with how we're training these guys to being 10 miles into a half marathon with your wife who's struggling, who's cramping up, and trying to meet her where she's at, but also not give her so much compassion to where she thinks it's okay to quit. It's like you also need to grow, and those are the times to where we can grow to the next level and to the next level. And when you get to that misogi, if you will, and you start doing these really hard things, they start getting extravagant. And you're like, whoa, like what's the next one? This is crazy. Like, where's the limit? And then you learn, it's like, well, it's totally limitless. Like this is This is the limitless world, dude. It's all based on belief. And if you really want it enough, you just keep trying and you'll get there.
Keep finding these things.
And I think that's so important for kids, especially to see that, especially for kids to see that because that's their baseline. They don't know anything different than like, well, that's my dad's done that. Like that's absolutely possible, and some of these kids don't see their dads get off the couch or get off the remote controls. So they don't know what they're capable of because they haven't seen what anybody else is capable of or been in that environment, and I think the more that we could cultivate those opportunities, the more that your people can grow, and I posted something recently on social media. It's like, as a father, the more that you can learn to become uncomfortable, you're going to put your kids in uncomfortable situations. It's not easy to go on a 19-day road trip out of a minivan where we're doing 4 days in Denver, 4 days in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, and 4 days on the river on a white water boat camping. It's like there's a lot of things that have to take place and a lot of discipline and preparation and understanding that there's going to be things that come up that are out of our control. That how do we take care of it as a family? How do we flow? I always try to talk to my family about flowing. Like water is the most powerful element on planet Earth. We are going to be water. No matter what comes our way, we're going to work through it. Period. We never quit. We're not going to be stopped. We're just going to keep going. We're going to find another way. And I think that's important. The more you do that, and the more that comes second nature, the more that you see your kids do it out of second nature. You're like, whoa, like he just chose that. Everyone else is going this way and my son's going that way because he knows.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to go the hard way.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where you're like, okay, this is so worth it. You know, this is why I do what I do.
And it gives you can see the value already set in for what that will lend them later in life and then their relationships. Like it's that ripple effect, right? Speaking of water, it gives me so much like promise, but then also peace, knowing that they've embraced that little bit of struggle and how when they find discomfort when dad's not around, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think a value as a father, the value added when you can give them that skill and that confidence, and they're going to be an okay contributing human on the backside of this, maybe when you're not around, is of such massive importance.
Well, and be able to fulfill their own dreams and desires, you know,
Yeah.
and have confidence in that, and be able to
Yes.
understand and have the tools to go through the hard times.
Yeah.
You know, and it takes a lot.
That anxiety can shut down so many dreams.
Absolutely.
So many dreams.
And kids feel energy. So even as a parent,
Yeah.
if you have full anxiety, if you're full of anxiety, it doesn't matter what you're saying to that kid. He's
Yeah.
going to feel you.
Yes.
He's going to feel you. And I think that's why as firefighters especially, we have so much time to spend with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So much, if we choose.
If we choose.
If we choose it. And what kind of quality is it going to be when you choose it? You know, some guys go right to the garage and start drinking beers. That's cool. That's your choice. Some guys go to their volunteer houses. Some guys just work overtime all the time because it's comfortable. Because everybody's miserable, you know, or whatever that is.
Right.
Surrounding themselves with who they believe to be, you know. And it's like if we can take the time as firefighters and fathers to have true quality time with our kids, to learn about one another and understand one another and work through hard times, and then put yourself in difficult times so you can overcome, that's where the growth is, you know. But it's like, where are you at spiritually, mentally, physically, as a fireman, as a father, as a husband, that you can spend that time with your kids? Where are you at, and what are you doing to better that? You know, are you trying to control the controllables, or are you just a victim to your environment because everyone else is doing this? You're going to go along with it.
Right.
Does it feel right to you? No. Well, then do something different. Be courageous.
I so hope that for everybody, that if we can be more confident in our own skin, break the mold, live a life that you know is worth living for you. And if that means that the other 99% are not in line with that, then that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay. And so many people aren't living that. They aren't feeling that.
Yeah.
And you can just see it wreak havoc in small areas that manifest themselves in larger ways. And they don't see it. They feel it.
Yeah.
But they don't see it.
Well, they don't know. You know,
Yeah.
their parents didn't have the tools, which means they
Yes.
didn't have the tools, and they haven't taken the time to cultivate the tools.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a really cool space that we're in right now, is there's a lot of people in our generation that didn't have parents growing up, that maybe didn't have awesome parents growing up if they had them. And it's like, I think that we're in a generation of change where they're starting to see, like, I didn't like that, but I also don't like this. I'm going to go in the middle here and kind of choose my path,
Yeah.
you know, which is totally different mentality than what we've been told in the
Yeah.
past, you know, which is special.
You posted something just recently that just reminded me. I think it was a Tired Dad video. And I have been following him for a while. Love it. And it kind of, I remember it kind of spoke on that. Like the way, like maybe punishment used to be doled out, and how it was so much about aggression or like true punishment, instead of maybe empathizing and seeing, all right, well, what's the thought process? How can we change our behaviors together in like in a healing way, and not maybe in a punitive way? Right?
Yeah.
And if we just treat more human beings, not just even our own kids, like that, just think of how much growth there could be. But especially with our kids,
Absolutely.
We're definitely in a generational shift here with that.
Absolutely. And understand that that's just a mini version of you. And what you're feeling right now in that anger towards this child, it's coming from an inner anger from yourself that you've already been a part of. So at that point, if you're aware enough and present enough as a father, as a parent, you can be like, what would I have wanted if I was my child right now? What would I have wanted? Like, what would I want somebody to say to me? You know, and sometimes, like, I just want a hug. Come here, dude. Come here and give me a hug.
Dude, massively powerful.
Let me just give you a hug.
Yeah.
Don't say anything. You know, give you a hug, and then we'll talk about some things.
Yep. Not yelling.
That's it.
Not
These kids are just
spanking.
looking for energy, man.
Yeah.
These kids are just looking for
Yeah.
affection and attention, and sometimes they don't know how to get it. We didn't know how to get it.
Nope.
We were told to shut up.
Yes.
You know, don't talk, don't cry, don't do this.
Right.
And it's been
Seen,
interesting
not
to
heard.
see that transition
Yeah.
of like being okay with being emotional, being real, because this world's rough right now. It's not getting easier.
We're in a wild time, man.
We're in a wild time, bro.
Yeah. Let's talk about that daily discipline, like the breath work and the meditation.
Yeah.
I know for me, I have my what we'll call like daily practice,
Uh-huh.
and it's one of those things that's simple, but it's not easy, right? All too often, we get super stuck on things that don't fill that cup up for us.
Yeah.
Like we can death scroll, or maybe it's just sitting in front of the TV, or maybe it's just idle time, which we all need to a degree. But it takes work to get in the ice bath. It takes work to meditate. It takes work to down-regulate the nervous system and do breath work when it's necessary and needed. What does that practice look like for you?
Yeah.
And how have you seen your shift and your change for the positive now on the I don't want to say the backside of it like you're done, but like now being on this side of the journey prior to having a daily discipline?
Sure.
And granted, I'm making assumptions here. I'm thinking about how I've also approached it too. Like there was before I did those things and there was after, and they're two different people.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that embracing the hardship. That 0 to 10 scale, that pain scale is now recalibrated. It is much more bandwidth for discomfort and for struggle that happens.
Yeah.
So what are those things for you, and how have they bred more resilience for you?
Absolutely. That's an interesting question, because me 5 years ago, if I met that version today, I wouldn't even know who it was. And you can ask my wife, she's like, I don't even know who you are anymore. And I love it.
I love
it,
Yeah.
you know, because we're here to shift. We're here to evolve and change every day. You know, and me without those practices was me on Adderall, was me on all of the antidepressant medications, anti-anxiety medications, who was literally had everything that I thought I needed to be happy and was absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
I got my dream job. I got a smoking hot wife. I got awesome kids. I got a home. I got a dog. It's like, what more do I want?
Yeah.
It's like, I can't even tell you. I need a new dirt bike. Maybe hat me. It's like, no, dude. Like,
It's not it.
you're missing something. You're missing the point of life, you know?
Yeah.
And I think now that my daily discipline it's pretty wild. I say the things that I do every single day. I have a pretty big habit checklist,
Okay.
and I try to add new habits every quarter. And like even this morning, it's tough because you're not going to be on it all the time, you know? And I was telling you, we had a long night of just like being with my wife. It's been a while since we've just been together. And then having a child wake up in the middle of the night, and my 5 a.m. alarm clock went off, and I wasn't getting out of bed, you know, and finally rolled out of bed at 6:30, but I had a 10-mile run to get in before I came here.
Yeah.
And I ended up leaving an hour late, and then it was all good. I worked through the whole thing because I was angry at myself for not being disciplined enough for that hour, because my ego self in bed was like, well, you deserve another hour. You didn't sleep enough, you know, and that guy won. But then what happened is I got home at 9:30, and my kids had just left to go with my wife to the gym, and I wasn't able to say good morning to them, and that broke my heart. And I'm like, dude, you're better than that. You need to be more disciplined than that.
Yeah.
So then it's all about like, what are you going to do to overcome that and meet yourself where you're at and give yourself a little grace is huge, you know. But my daily discipline now is the biggest thing I would say for me is my morning routine.
Yeah.
Because you have to be disciplined in your morning routine to set the stage.
Yes.
There's so many people that wake up and go to work, and the first person that they encounter, that's their baseline energy level now. Or the first thing that turned on the news when they get in their car, that's not your baseline. You're going to learn about war and depression and anger and all these things that are going to not put you in a good state of mind. So my first hour and a half of my day is mine. And I usually hang out with my wife every single morning. We either do coffee in the hot tub and just have a big reflection time where we have conversation. But then another thing I do is I meditate every single morning, no matter where I'm at, what I'm doing. I meditate every single morning. And then I try to do some kind of yoga flow. And we do some kind of discipline with reading and trying to do personal development reading. And then a new one that I'm really trying to work on is my journaling, because it's all about reflection.
Yeah.
And it's all about truly knowing where your time is going, you know. And since all of these things has unfolded, my wife and I have become life coaches, and our big thing is time management. And where is all of your time going? We only have so much time here on this planet, you know. And it's like, I was that person that didn't plan anything because I didn't want to be strapped down, you know. It's like, no, I ain't using a planner, dude. Like, I'm free, dude. I'm as free as it gets. I'm always free.
It's the
whatever you
side
need,
of the hippie, right?
that's it.
Yeah.
You know, and that was that Colorado lifestyle. Like, you get a phone call, yo, dude, we're gonna go whitewater rafting, and then we're gonna go dirt biking. Like, hit me up, let's go. I'm loading up right now.
Yeah.
You know. And what's cool about now is I have a planner that my wife and I sit down every Sunday, and we plan out our entire week, our entire month. And we plan out all of our anchors. What do our kids need that we can't shift around? You know, the lessons, the school, whatever that is. What do we need for what we have going on with our big goals? What are we going to do together one-on-one? What are we going to do with our kids one-on-one? Where's our family time with all of that, with the rest of the big family? What about our friends? Where's that time coming in? And we literally schedule in all of these things that mean a lot to us.
Yeah.
Because that's what gives us energy.
Yes.
It's like we miss so much connection because we're so busy. Most times we're busy not doing anything at all. We're just busy in our minds.
Rumination.
That's it. And when you can schedule out the whole week, and then you get a phone call on a Tuesday, and they're like, hey, man, on Friday I'm doing this. And you could open up your planner and be like, well, I've got an 8-mile run that day, but I can move that up an hour. Yeah, dude, let's do it. Because you have now open space.
Yeah.
Before it was just like, I don't know, man, we'll see when it gets there. It's like, we'll see when it gets there. If it gets there, if you ever get the opportunity again, don't miss it, dude. Yeah. Don't miss it. Be regiment, plan your day, plan your life, plan your goals, plan everything about what you have going on, and then reflect upon it, because it can constantly get better and better and better and better. And you can have all these daily habits like ice bathing, like yoga, like working out, like whatever that is for you. It's important because those are the things that refuel you, and you have to refuel yourself in order to give back, period. And I always say, like, if you're just that person that just want to keep doing everything for everybody else, that's great. But when you jump every single car in the parking lot at Walmart and you never drove your car around or started it up, guess what? When everybody leaves, you're there with a dead battery, dude. Like, what are you going to do at that point?
Great analogy.
What are you going to do at that point? It's like, so you need to be wise and understand how things work, including yourself, including your mind, including your body, including your heart, and understand that you need to take that time for yourself and take that time around people that give you life. Because we're going to have to be thrown into things that don't give you life, and it's going to steal a little energy from you, and that's okay. That's life. But you need to recharge and refuel and come back to be mission-oriented.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. You can't pour from an empty cup.
You can't.
And I got this from, it's one of my favorite books, Essentialism. And this is in so many, like, doctrines and dogmas across cultures, is like when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, and vice versa. So when you and your wife instill that bit of discipline and say, these are the value-added things, and I like the word used, like, these are the anchor things, these are the value-added things, this is what's going to give us energy in life. You're saying no to all the things that are not going to give you energy, or just going by the seat of your pants. And I think many people really underestimate the value of saying no to those things, or just throwing all caution to the wind. And that, I think there's a time and a place for that. Like, all right, we're going to get out of our comfort zone, right? But when we're talking about, like, that daily discipline of value added, filling the cup back up, it is of massive importance.
Massive importance.
Underestimate the value of it immensely.
Yes, I mean, and saying no and boundaries is the ultimate form of self-love. It's the ultimate form of self-love, is saying no, you know? And it's like, people are like, you're going to fill your cup first. Isn't that selfish? You're like, no, it's actually quite the opposite. No. Like, I know that what you believe and what you were told might be told differently. Yeah. But, like, that doesn't even make sense when you think about it, dude. Like, think about that. You're just going to keep giving it out, keep giving out. Like, when do you recharge? When do you refuel for you so you can show up as your best version of yourself, so you don't have any regrets of what you said or what you did when you were low on energy? It's like, I want to be up here so I can be mindful and be present with anybody I'm with at all times, so I can show up as my best version of myself that I have at that moment. And maybe that's not 100%. Maybe that's 100% of my 70% I have to give, but I know I actually tried my best, you know? And I'd run by 4 agreements in my life, and that's Number one, make your word impeccable as best as you can. Even like the silly things I'll come back to. If I'm like, oh, I ran 10 miles today. It's like, no, actually you ran 9.87. You know, things like that. Like, it's like, no. Like, be impeccable with it. Yeah. Don't take anything personal, period. Don't take anything personal, including the things that are in your mind that the shit talker's saying to yourself right then. You know what I mean? Always try your hardest. Always try your hardest at all times. And then the biggest one for me, which changed my marriage tremendously, was never assume anything. Yeah. Which is huge, especially as a father, especially as a husband, and then you become a father.
Yeah.
Right? Because the energy shifts, especially with the moms. It's like, she used to make me lunch. Now it's just what happened. And then you take it personally, you know? And it's like, well, I thought you were going to make me a sandwich, you know, or whatever that is. And you can go down this huge road of being like upset and being a victim because energy is shifted, right? It's like, just state what you need and see if you can cultivate an environment where everybody gets what they want, you know? And that's something I've really tried to cultivate in my kids, is don't assume anything, you know? And my oldest will be at times, he's like, well, he pushed me over because he knew I was sitting here. And I'm like, hold on, dude, what do we call that? And the 6-year-old will be like, that's an assumption. He's like, we don't do that in the Prieur family. I'm like, that's right, dude. We don't assume anything.
Yeah, I love it.
We can ask questions and try to get clarity on things, because clarity is what drives focus, which is what drives you into your future.
Yeah, I love those 4 agreements. We have one slightly varied approach, and ours is just assume positive intent. I like the do not assume. Ours is just slightly different, where, you know, my wife and I talk about, and that's changed just immensely too. I completely agree. And we do the same thing with our kids. We take a deep breath and we say, all right, was it, just like you said, was it truly a negative thing that's creeping in? Or like, if we just assume that it came actually from a positive place, it changes the entire conversation.
Yeah, interesting.
You know, we're so quick to just bam, negative, and then that releases cortisol, then you feel it in your body, and then the rumination kicks in.
That's it.
And we play this whole story in our head of something that's probably not even true.
The wildest stories.
The wildest stories has nothing to do with anything that's actually grounded in fact.
Yep.
And if you just assume positive intent, it just changes the entire conversation. Or like you said, it's just, you just don't assume.
Yeah.
And you can look at it from a much more objective place, and then it doesn't sit in your body.
That's it.
Which is what you're getting at.
Well, and trauma can't be held in a non-tense body, and that's why I do all the work that I do as well, because the more relaxed and flowy that I am, the more that the trauma that could be held within my body and turn into PTSD can just flow through me, and I can understand it from a different perspective, which is so key, you know. But that takes a lot of work in order to be present enough to do your body scans, to see where you're holding tension, to put breath into your body where you feel a little tense, and then become aware of what comes up to your mind. And you're like, wow, like that was a time that I totally forgot about. And it's like, all right, well, do you have enough energy right now to dive into that world and try to do a little bit of healing there? Or do you want to push it back down for a different time? And then it's a conscious choice, you know?
Yeah. I know for me, some of my meditations where we kind of have something similar. Like my morning discipline is I'll get in the hot tub and I'll meditate and do breath work, cold plunge, breakfast with the family, and then from there it's, what are the anchors, and we kind of manage it throughout there. Some of the meditations I go through, like we're sitting outside right now, like we can let all the white noise come at us. Now it's super easy in nature. It's joyous, right? But when you start picking apart noises one by one, like there are 8 different songbirds out here. You got the rain, and that's like a down regulation, and I'll spend 5 minutes just doing that, just picking things out one by one, so that we're actually not just allowing external noise to just whitewash us, right? And then I'll have things where I'll talk to a younger version of myself. I'll talk to an older version of myself, like more a sage person who's experienced more, like is helping me work through a problem, for example. And there's been a tremendous amount of healing, but then also that awareness of, this is sitting with my body. Let's root that out real quick. And you can push it and move on about your day. Are there certain maybe go-to meditations for you that are like, this is my go-to, this is beneficial, this is where I reap a lot of rewards from?
So I do a lot of different meditations, and I've done a lot of my training for the Ironman was through meditative work. I will say the biggest tool that I cultivated during some pretty crazy times was something that I call the smile check-in.
Okay.
And I think that's the biggest thing for me to shift my state at any moment. So I do it periodically throughout the day. Anytime, especially that I feel that my emotions are getting negative, or I start to focus on the negative in people, or the negative in the traffic, or the negative or whatever in the environment that I'm in, I'll stop everything and I'll do a smile check-in. So the first thing I do is I do 2 deep breaths through my nose, and then a hold, and then a big exhale, and I go into the S. So the S is your spirit. Like, where is your spirit at right now? And is there anything that you can do to change that state? So I'll look around for anything that's going to make me smile. So I'll look for literally like a flower. I'll look for a little kid acting drunk, doing his thing. Anything that's going to make me giggle or put a smile on my face to change the state of my spirit that I'm in at that exact moment, right? And you can use spirit or it's a scripture depending on where you're at in religion and all that.
Okay.
And then your M is your mindfulness or your meditation. It's like, am I being mindful right now? Which all mindfulness is to me is paying attention on purpose without judgment. And the big thing is without judgment, you know, and let that go, that judgment go. The I is my intention. Like, do I have good intentions right now with what I'm doing? And can I change that at all? And then the L is love for myself. And am I giving love to everybody around me? If not, change it. And then my E, which is the biggest one, is the echo. If my kids were in my room right now or looking over top of me, would I be proud if I saw them doing the same thing? And if any of those were a no, I'm switching it up. And when I come out of that smile meditation, if you will, I call it the smile check-in, I'm in a totally different world.
That's powerful.
Completely different world.
Yeah, that's super powerful. I love that.
It's pretty rad.
Yeah.
It's changed my life completely.
Yes. And I think what a lot of people underestimate is that can be something, a lot of people think it's, I got to sit on this comfy pillow and I got to take 20 minutes to downregulate. I mean, you can do that.
Yeah?
You absolutely can. But then you can also do that and you can do a quick check-in and that could be 60 seconds.
That's it.
Right?
I mean, 30 seconds and your whole world has changed for the rest of the day until you go
Yeah.
back to it and you're like, all right, another smile check-in, I need one.
Yeah.
But you start to realize things you never know existed around you. I never knew that flower existed or how rad that tree is.
Yeah.
You know, you never realize what's around you because you're so focused on what you already know, you know, and
Yeah.
even like listening to sounds and you're like, oh, well, I know what that is. Well, that's a tractor or that's that. It's like, you don't know anything, dude. That's just an assumption again.
Yeah,
it's like, just
right.
be aware of it and be present with it and enjoy it for what it is and then move it along, you know?
Yeah.
The whole without judgment thing is tough.
Yeah.
And I think letting go is tough, especially, and that's where my yoga practice comes into play, of like really being aware of where my mind is, and then being aware of like letting go of things that no longer serve me at a constant level, like
Yeah.
even the thoughts, because the thought patterns are just repetition, and our minds are always going to go towards a negative state in order to try to survive, because that's what we've done it as a species,
Yes.
right? But we're now in a world where our stress level is so high from the society that we live in that our bodies think that we're running from saber-toothed tigers all day long. It's
Right.
like, well, that's not the case, dude. You know, it's like maybe turn around and realize that it's just a sweet fox so you can go pet real quick. You know? Maybe it's not as scary as you think, but until you turn around and look and become aware of it and then see what you can do to change the state of it, you're going to be in a stuck world forever.
Yes.
And that's a pretty empowerment. Like, there's no empowerment in there at all. It's disempowering.
No, that's a great word for it. And you allow that cortisol spike to happen, and then the brain-body connection creeps in, and you understand where these heart issues, blood sugar issues, the anxiety, the depression, a whole host of physical ailments stem from just constant cortisol drips in your body throughout the day. And something as simple as bringing some more awe into your life, or a smile meditation, and rooting those things out, a 30 to 60 second practice.
That's it.
Can literally change your physical body.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably my biggest morning practice that I didn't talk about is my gratitude practice.
Yeah.
And I do that before I get out of bed every day. I find 3 to 5 things. The first thing I do when I open my eyes, it's already programmed to the subconscious mind, because it takes 66 days of doing something until it's programmed, you know. So literally I open my eyes and the first thing that comes to my mind is what I'm thankful for. And what that does is it focuses everything back into your heart, and then you have an open heart center. right? So then you're actually feeling the world from an open heart of gratitude of what you do have right now. Yeah, you might not have this, and you might not have this, and you might not have this. You can focus on all that, and guess what? That's a low vibration, and you're going to see the world in a low vibration. But you can also focus on, I have my health right now. I'm breathing. I have a roof over my head right now. I'm so thankful for my kids' health. I'm so thankful that I have a truck to get to work. I'm so thankful for health insurance. Whatever that is, when you can take all the gratitude of things you do have in your life and put it into your heart, well, now that's your baseline. And, and scientifically they've proven that our hearts are 1,500 times more magnetic to the world that we live in and 60 times more powerful than our minds. So if we know that, and the science is showing that, well, we better get there and start living from our heart, because we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
This is the time to change it up.
Sure. And just like you said, you are the first person you approach. That could be their reflection of the day.
That's it.
So you're coming to it heart first, open heart, assuming positive intent, healthy energy. You could change somebody else's day. And
that's it.
Just like that ripple effect, man.
Well, you don't even realize that at times when you're doing that.
Yeah.
And recently I went for a big run with these finance gurus in Leesburg. And their thing is a bunch of financial guys that are very wealthy. And they're all fathers. Most of them are fathers, but they try to do one hard thing a year together, which is so rad to see, awesome. Like people like that are doing really hard things, And I went, and this gentleman was running 45 miles for his 45th birthday.
Cool.
And I paced him for half of it. And then we went out to dinner that night, and one of the gentlemen said to me, he's like, I really appreciate you for what you brought to the table today. I'm like, all right, well, thank you, dude. That means a lot. He's like, you said hi to every single person that you saw and told them have a good day. Literally every single person that we passed, you said hello and I hope you have a beautiful day. He's like, I've never felt that. Like, you changed so many lives today just by saying that to somebody. It's like, whoa, like, that's just a baseline for me. Like, how cool. Like, yeah, you're right. Yeah. That's cool. Thank you. He's like, I'm going to start doing that everywhere I go. I'm like, whoa, sick. Thank
awesome.
You for that, dude.
That up from you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Because it's true. Like, just you saying, I hope you have an amazing day today to a stranger could save that person's life. It could change that person's day. It could change that person for 30 seconds. Whatever that is, do your part in this world to try to make somebody's life better.
Just brought a little bit of light.
Shit, there's enough evil in the world. We don't need to be linked onto that world, dude. Like, try to bring a little light into the world right now, know?
Man, so many amazing things here. So many beautiful things. You have been on this journey. I don't want to speak just exactly to the Laird event, but you throughout your life have certainly experienced trauma and struggle. You've talked about that in like your presentations and some of the other podcasts. The Laird event was that a major shift for you to get you, or were you already on this path?
I was already on this path, we'll say.
Yeah.
I had that big awakening probably about six to 8 months prior to the Laird event.
Okay.
And I'm blessed that I was, because if I wasn't already on the path, it would have took me out.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of tools in place, and I had a lot of momentum in place when the Laird event took place. And without all those things that I had at that moment, I don't know if I could have made it through, because it was tough, and it was like everybody was against me for whatever the reason, because my perspective was a bit different.
Sure.
And that was tough. It was tough to try to be a good person and try to do your job to the best of your highest ability and do the best that you had, and to still have somebody die, and to still have all these people that were upset, and still have all these people that didn't really know the story to be what it really was. We didn't really talk about it as a division.
Yeah.
There was a lot of secrecy meetings and a lot of interviews, but that was it. And I'm very thankful that I was already on the path.
Yeah.
But there's always that shift. There's always something that's going to take place. And it's like that adversity is an opportunity.
Yes.
Period. It's like we can either take it as a punishment or take it as a way to grow and have opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's a choice. But that's the difference between PTSD and growth.
Yeah.
Period. That's the choice. It's a choice.
It's a choice.
You have to be able to look at it, reflect on it, know your part in the role, and then figure out what you can do to change what you're thinking.
Yes.
And change what's on your mind.
It's work.
That's it. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of discipline, and it's a lot of work, but you have to be willing to want to dive into it. And sometimes you don't know you need to change until you're in the darkness.
Yeah.
when there's no light to be seen and you're just looking for anything that's light. You know what I mean? So I think that's the beautiful time that we're in right now, is we're in such a time of darkness, of such a duality world, to where you can see the dark side, you know, and there is this far this way and far this way. And it's like most of us are just in the middle looking at both sides, and they both look fucked up, man. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, they're
Right.
like, I don't want either side. Where do
No.
I go? It's like,
Yeah.
well, look to your person next to you. He's probably got an answer for you.
Mhm.
Look to the next guy next to you. He might have an answer for you, and start talking to people and start to have communication and conversation and understand that we're all going through it.
Yes.
How are you getting through it? How are you getting through it? Do you know any books that I can read? Do you know this? Where can I go? You have free yoga here in Frederick. Go there. Try that.
Yeah, yeah.
There's churches everywhere. Find a community of people that are going to help you. Talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how much worse is it going to get, bro? You're miserable. Start talking about it.
It just takes like the dark analogy. It takes one match worth. Like, there's no amount of darkness that can overwhelm that little shred of light.
That's it.
It's impossible.
But
So
you
just
need the
find that little
darkness, you know, because that's
You
what
do.
creates duality. And I think
Yeah.
until you understand that, it's like it's an opportunity. Like, you know, you don't know what sickness is until you know what health is. You don't know what sadness is until you know what happiness is. You need one to have the other. It's the yin and the yang, you know. It's like, I'm a really good dad because I didn't have a good dad. You know, I had a dad that was living his own dream, and I admire him for that. But it didn't give me anything as a kid,
Yeah.
you know. And it's like, and that's a thing that I struggle with as a father now, is like having healthy boundaries with my kids. I have a really hard time saying no to my kids.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what they want
Yeah.
to do, if it's not going to kill them, I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, babe, you're going to build that? They're like, yes, we
Yes,
are.
we are right
we
now.
are right now. I'm going to stop everything, you
Yeah.
know? And sometimes, like, especially now we're moving into homeschooling next year, it's like, it's going to be very important to have boundaries
Yeah,
as a
sure.
father.
Some
To be like,
structure.
this is your time for you guys to create. This is our time for our time to create. And this is the whole family's time to be able to have time together, you know?
Yeah.
But they need time to struggle as well.
Yes.
And my goal is to incorporate an environment for them to struggle a little bit and to figure it out, because you figure things out in the struggle. Otherwise, there's
Yeah.
no reason. You know, there's so many people that have life easy, and it's like, look at their life. It's miserable because they
Yes.
had it so easy.
Yes.
You have to be willing to struggle. And the more you can put yourself in those hard scenarios and struggle willingly, the more you're going to grow and learn every day.
Life is going to do what it's going to do anyway. You're
That's it.
going to get thrown challenges, and when you have taken that easy road, now you don't have the skills or the
That's it.
bandwidth to tackle that little bit of hardship, because it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Absolutely. And that's
You
what
have
makes
to
life
control it.
life. If you had a roller coaster that was flat, what a boring roller coaster. Nobody would even get on it.
You're right.
You know what I mean? It's the ups
Another
and
great
downs
analogy.
that makes it what it is, and makes life life.
Yes.
And it's like, sometimes you got to enjoy those dark moments and be like, whoa, like, this is gnarly.
We're in the
I don't
trenches
like
right now.
this. Like, we're here, dude. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just a matter of zooming out and be like, yeah, you're in the trenches right now, but let's zoom out more of a 2-year span. Where are you at? You're like, oh, man, I've grown so much. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in this little trench here, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
I need this. Maybe I
on
need
the
to
map.
take a little time for myself. Maybe I need to go off into the woods for 3 days with no phone and no people and just sit with myself, you know? Maybe I need to separate myself from the world right now. Whatever that is, like, give yourself a little love and a little grace. And I think that's where firefighter wives come in. Their job is a crazy one.
Yeah.
I mean, we think our job's tough. Like, that job's way tougher than what I got going on, dude. Like, my wife and what she does to keep me grounded and to keep my nervous system in line is a lot, you know? Like, even just coming home to a clean home or a clean kitchen, or coming home to coffee on the table
Yeah.
to be able to have conversation about how was your shift, you know? What do you want to talk about? Let's get it out now, you know? A lot of
Yeah.
times I'll go to 6 a.m. hot yoga to get it all out and leave it on my mat, so when I go home, I'm free to be with my kids.
Yeah. You're present.
Right, but sometimes I come home and, like, I'm there with my wife. Like, let's have these conversations now. So when the kids get up, it's all out on the table.
Yeah.
You know.
That's awesome.
But that takes a lot for your wife to be strong enough to give you all that as well. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And talking to some therapists, it's not always necessarily the trauma that we deal with. That's a very real thing. But sometimes it's the relationship with your spouse at home. And if that's dysregulated, that can be the thing that gets its tentacles in all the other aspects of your life, personal, professional. And so when that's dysregulated, it's really hard to find peace.
Yes.
Right? So to do going back to doing the hard thing, approaching whatever hardship it is together, hand in hand, side by side, or to have those conversations, to just download what you need to download.
Yeah.
Is just of massive importance, right?
Well, and I think communication is key,
Yeah.
and being able to speak your voice,
Yeah.
like without any kind of reprimand, like just be like, I need to tell you what I have going on right now, and have an environment, especially in a marriage, to where you can like give that to them, you know, and they know what to do to help you cultivate through that. And that takes a lot of time and energy to be able to have communication with a spouse like that, you know, because they don't need to know everything, but they need to know what's going on with you so they can give you an environment to thrive in, you know, because that's part of their job as well. And that's a difficult one, because our trauma is also their trauma, because they live with it every day, you know. So it's like the more that they can help us create a space to let go of it, the better off the whole family is going to be. But that takes a lot of communication within all the men on the shift. It takes a lot of communication with all the females on the shift together, and like really having communities that are able to conversate and be like, hey, like how's your husband doing after this, or how's this going on, you know. And not only that, but when you work 24 hours with 10 other dudes who have miserable marriages, like you start taking on some of that as well, you know, and listening what's going on there. So depending on where you're at and what means a lot to you is like the environment that you're going to create for yourself. Well, everyone else is miserable, and I'm kind of miserable, so that's fine. It's normal, right? It's a firefighter thing. It's like,
where you live.
Absolutely not, dude. Like, we have the opportunity to spend we work 9 days a month, bro. Like, you can spend the rest of your time with your family. How sweet.
Yes.
I'm like, this is I just built a rad environment by having kids and a rad wife. Like, how incredible. Like, this is my life now.
Create experiences.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why we're here. We're here to experience the good, the bad, the ugly, the proud, anything it is. Like, otherwise, what are we here for? Truly.
Right.
Doesn't even make sense.